Have you and your team felt like your butts are dragging? Do you some days feel like you're on rinse and repeat, as if you're the one who's been hung out to dry? I'm Mary Scifres from Mary Scifres Ministries, and I'm hearing again and again from my coaching clients that they are tired, especially when it comes to creating and leading virtual worship, while also hosting in-person worship and gatherings and trying to grow your churches with the myriad demands of online meetings, in-person activities, bringing back old plans and exploring new ideas. It just seems like it's all too much. That's why we here at Mary Scifres Ministries have created this video series on re-energizing virtual worship. In this, our third video in the series, we're recommending that you get the resources you need in order to energize yourself, your work, and your team. Rather than trying to figure all this out on your own, reach out and get the resources you need to focus your plans, design the ideas and activities that are most life-giving, and energize and inspire your people as well as yourself. One of my colleagues started his pandemic worship journey by managing all of the editing and posting of their church's online worship services. The services were amazing, creative, and inspiring, and he loved doing it for about 3 months. But by the end of that first summer, he was a man on the edge. So he reached out to me for some coaching help. Together, we began prioritizing what was most important in his worship ministry, and he began sharing the virtual ministry load with his team. 2 years later, that church has a full team of volunteers who help record worship. The church purchased recording equipment, and they've even added a staff position to managing the editing and the posting. Now everyone breathes a little more easily, and the pastor can focus on worship creativity and spiritual leadership. But it all began when the pastor reached out to get the resources he needed: a coach, more volunteers, new technology supplies, and ultimately a new staff member. Another coaching client who'd been subscribing to Creative Worship Made Easy for years, but never really used it, she wrote all of her own words for worship and sermon manuscripts, until one day she admitted to me in a coaching conversation she hadn't had a day off in more than a month. We looked over her calendar and prioritized what had to be done, what she felt most called to do, and what she could let go of. Still, her calendar was too full. She whispered across the Zoom screen, "Would it be okay if I just cut and pasted words for worship into the bulletin?" Of course, I laughingly encouraged her. Hundreds of pastors do that every week. A couple weeks later, she also began using the sermon titles and the ideas from her sermon starters in her subscription to save her hours and hours of research as she prepared her sermons each week. By December, her weekly calendar included at least one day off each week for Sabbath and rest, and her January calendar had already carved out 3 weeks of much-needed vacation. It all began when she got the resources she needed. Get the resources you need. Talk with your team and find out what resources they need and help them find those resources. Whether it's a webinar or a book with new ideas, worship materials or study group guides, or additional volunteers and new or different staff members, the resources you need become foundational in re-energizing your virtual worship, your ministry, and your leadership. If finances are tight or volunteerism is low, talk with your leaders to brainstorm and discern together how you can find and fund the resources you need, not in some distant future, but as soon as possible, so you and your team can find the energy and enthusiasm to fall in love with your work again. I'm Mary Scifres for Mary Scifres Ministries, here to inspire and support your ministry. Call us if you're having trouble finding that energy for some coaching help or some resource help, so that you can find the energy and joy to again lead in the way you are called to lead each and every day.